part. And I'll tell you why I say that. But when we pray, a lot of times I think the way our brains work is we're, like, give us all this stuff. Like, here's my list, my 10-year plan. God, this 10-year plan would be great. But can you imagine what trust in God is involved to say, okay, well, I'm trusting you. Like, give me what I need today. And then tomorrow we'll talk again.
Right.
I'll seek you again tomorrow. And I'll know that tomorrow I can trust you for what I need tomorrow. And this actually, the reason I came to love that part is thinking about the Exodus that happens when the Hebrew people, the Israelites, are they leave Egypt. They leave being slaves in Egypt, and Moses takes them across the Red Sea. But as they get past the Red Sea and they're out of danger from all the Egyptians that were chasing them, and they began to go on toward the land that's been promised to them, they have to go through a place that gets 1 to 2 inches of rainfall a year. There's no sign of life. There's not vegetation. There's not trees. I mean, it truly is, it talks about they're in the wilderness. Well, that's code for desert. Exactly. So they're wandering and they're moving in this desert place, and they know. I mean, you can look around and see there's no way we're going to make it. And they think back to when they were in Egypt. Yes, they may have been working hard. They may have been slaves, but they had bread. They had something to drink. They weren't hungry and they weren't, thirsty. And they're like, why would you bring us out here just to die? Why would God bring us out here, deliver us from slavery just to die? Because there's no possible way. No possible way. We understand there's no way we can live and we can make it. Well, here's the beauty of it. God provides. He provides the quail and the manna. Exactly. So the manna, he tells them only take enough for one day.
Don't save them for overnight.
Exactly, because what happens if they hoard it away or they try to save it?
It goes bad.
Exactly. See, Chris, you ought to be doing this. You ought to be in charge. Wait, you are in charge. What am I saying? I'd have to go to the house if you weren't here. But so that's the thing, is that's where when I was hearing that story, I realized that they had to learn to trust God every single day to provide. And every single day, God was faithful. Every single day, no matter how bleak that circumstance looked, no matter how lifeless it looked, God breathed life into them. He fed them. He gave them what they needed to drink and eat every single day.
Could you imagine eating vanilla wafers every single day for like 40 years?
Well, you and I cannot. We have so much variety. We can't. Some
but
people.
I guess if that's what all you had.
I know.
You would have to.
Yes, absolutely. And so it definitely makes you stop and think. But it truly, to me, is such a beautiful visual. And, of course, seeing that in Israel, I saw the Negev, and I saw just how barren it was. And that's when I finally realized these people weren't whiny babies. I thought they were just whiny babies. But they legitimately knew there was no possible way. But that is just to God's glory, because God makes a way when there seems to be no way.
Yep.
And God is our provider. So we pray every day, or when we pray that He'll give us our daily bread. And that is an act of trust. Like, God, today. I'm praying for what I need today, and tomorrow we'll do this again. So how you doing, Chris?
I'm good.
All right. Well, the other part then we move on to is something that we definitely need in our lives. Jesus teaches them to ask for forgiveness. And
that's a big one.
It is. We really do need it. We need that clean slate, and we need to just lay it out there and be real. And he says, and forgive us our trespasses. So, and I'll get to the rest of that here in a minute.
Okay.
Or I'll let you do it, but it's good stuff. So forgive us our trespasses. We ask that we're forgiven, because why? We do trespass. Trespass is in that word means to go where we don't belong.
Yep.
Can you think about it like that? So we go where we don't belong, and sometimes that's going against God or against His will, going against other people.
It doesn't necessarily mean being on somebody else's property.
Right. It doesn't necessarily mean being on their property. It is going where you don't belong. And, when your words or your actions injure another person, that's truthfully going where you don't belong.
Yep.
And so we know that none of us can pay our own debt. We can't pay for those trespasses by anything. I mean, we can't make it up to God by doing anything. That sin we can't. So we can't forgive our own sins. We don't have what it takes. Only God through Jesus Christ. And so it's our faith in Jesus that covers those trespasses. And Jesus models for or tells his disciples that we are to pray for forgiveness. And I think even that might be a little forgotten. I think sometimes we know God knows and we hope He forgives us, but I think it's really a good practice. Jesus says it is, right, to ask for that forgiveness. And God forgives it. He grants it. It's not a question. So that forgiveness is reconciliation with God and not holding on to things that are just going to weigh you down, like turning from that. So that wasn't all that Jesus said, though. He says, forgive us our trespasses
as we forgive those who trespass against us.
Ouch. Right? That's a
the hard
little
one.
bit, that's a little bit bigger conversation, isn't it?
That's an episode.
Yeah. As we forgive those who trespass against us. And so we don't always hear that part. And we certainly don't always live that part, because I think sometimes we like to hold on to things.
Yep.
And this is more than just about healing for us with God and with our own selves, but it is also about healing relationships. We're called to be forgiving people. Jesus, He's on the cross. He's been tortured. He's fixing to die for the sins of the world. And on the cross, the people that were shouting, crucify Him, the people that were wishing the worst horrible death on a human in that culture, He says,
forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do.
Exactly. He extends forgiveness, and He asks for their forgiveness. So this reconciling, this forgiving other people, even when they've done something that they're never going to apologize for.
That's the part right there. That's the part I wait for.
But you know what? The one thing I had to learn is that forgiveness is between you and God.
Right.
And unforgiveness, I guess I should say, is between you and God. Because your relationship with God and those things that continue to haunt you, hurt you, weigh you down, bring you back to an unhealthy place, cause you to sin or fall short, like those thoughts and feelings, the anger, whatever that is that circulates, that unforgiveness that we have for others, that's really only about your relationship with God.
Right.
Because you may not be able to heal that relationship. Sometimes there are relationships that you may not be able to heal because it's so harmful to you to try to be connected to certain people. And that's okay. That's okay because God knows our heart, but that we don't have to hang on to the unforgiveness.
Right.
Like we don't have to let that person hurt us anymore.
I have an ongoing thing right now with that. My problem is I feel like I've forgiven, but then I start thinking about stuff again and I get mad again.
Yeah, and sometimes I think we have to just continue to seek that over and over again, and we have to, one of the things that I had to ask myself once was, and actually I asked Jesus, I'm like, Jesus, if I let go of this hurt, what am I afraid of? What do I think it's going to do to me if I let this go? And what I found out, and this is going to sound horrible, I'm just being real with y'all, but what I found out was I was afraid that if I let go, if I forgave this person, then I wouldn't still have anything over them. And that I realized was really not a great reason. Like that wasn't who I wanted to be or who I needed to be. Like just worried about me feeling superior to them because they were wrong. This need to feel like I was better, a bigger person or better than they are. That wasn't healthy for me. That was pride too.
Yep.
So when I finally could just ask Jesus, what is it? I mean, that is my fear. What am I gonna, what's gonna happen if I give this up? What do I think is gonna be the problem? Why am I still holding on when it's better for me to let go? And I just waited for that. I just waited for that understanding. And, and that was part of that listening prayer that we talked about earlier, that healing prayer, because, sometimes healing is about figuring out this unforgiveness thing. Right. Sometimes it's not physical healing that we need. Sometimes it's spiritual healing, emotional healing, mental healing. Like there's just a lot of ways that we suffer. So anyway, this you got to watch me. I'll get off on all kinds of fun things, but
get after it. Well, my fear with forgiving is I feel like I'm leaving myself vulnerable for it to happen again.
Right.
It makes me look weak.
Right. Okay. Well, I like the transparency that you're sharing because, when you can actually call it out and when you know that you're truly not weak in forgiving, because that is not something a weak person does. Weak people do not forgive because they need to hold on to it. And it is in the strength that we find, and honestly, beyond ourselves.
Right.
It is in a strength where we lean into God. You tell me it's possible, so therefore it has to be that I can be free of this. And I don't have to hold this person accountable anymore. They don't owe me anything. I don't have to be connected to them, but I don't feel like they owe me anything, and I can feel a lot lighter about it. So we just have to find that place, and whatever that is that's holding on to that, we have to figure out how to speak some truth into that, because guess what? The enemy